That could mean rotating between BTs. It could mean, if you have that capacity, going to a soil insecticide. It could mean rotating to soybean for a year. If you have continuous corn, even if 1 year out of 4 you can rotate to soybean, you can really break that population. Keep good records so we know where things are planted. So if there's corn falling down in the field, we know where, we can go back to the records and say, yes, this is BT corn, and we can then go check it out. Check fields in July and August, and what you're looking for is lodging, root damage, and really high adult numbers, lots and lots of beetles. The entomologist in Minnesota calls these shut your mouth fields, because if you leave your mouth open when you walk in, beetles will fly into them. So these are very high numbers. And if you have a problem, report it. Report it to the seed dealer, because the seed dealer actually has requirements to look at these fields. There are, in order to get BT corn registered initially with EPA, there were requirements if we were to see resistance or something like resistance, what needs to be done. And there's a protocol that has to be followed. And in the extreme part of the protocol, beetles have to be collected and tested to see if they're resistant. So if you're seeing something like this, it's really important to log this into the system so things can be followed through. And if nothing is happening, then I would really urge you to contact me or contact one of the extension agents so they can call me so that I can come up and maybe look at some fields and we can talk about maybe what can be done about them. And if you don't want someone else to know, I won't tell anybody. Unless they pay me a lot of money. No, I'm kidding. So what does this mean on a wider kind of thing? So EPA now is reviewing the seed industry because of this 3 years worth of data and some of the issues with getting people to go to fields and reporting back what was actually happening. The requirements on the companies for reporting and monitoring are probably going to change. And then we just got reduced refuges. We don't want to lose that. We just got refuges in the bag. You know, some of this has implications for that. And then the other thing is, the minute that this stuff came out, and I think the paper that Aaron wrote was published in the summer of 2011, immediately this hit the press, and people started talking again about transgenic crops are bad and things like that. So when you get a problem, it kind of impacts everybody, especially when people in the non-ag community hear about this. So if you want to read more, this is the paper, Field Evolved Resistance to BT Maize, bloody. It's in this journal that I've never heard of, but it's called +1. It's not a very long paper. You can actually read it. And again, if there are areas up here with dairy production, livestock production, do not hesitate to call me if you've seen this kind of thing in your neighborhood. I would really appreciate knowing about it, because if it's something small, we might be able to deal with it early. So I will take questions as we switch speakers, and I guess you can ask me anything bug related if you don't want to ask me or food burn. Sean, you have a question? You look like you have a question. No, I guess not. Okay. You never had any questions in class either. Like I said, I don't know. Yeah.
Chris, what's your thoughts on such a mild winter relative to the Midwest? Is that going to increase any insect pressure?
So the question is, what about the mild winter? I almost feel like it's end of March right now. And yeah, we haven't had a good killing winter in a while, and anything you can do to kill insects, and we're talking a very hard kind of winter. Most of the insects that overwinter here, they already survive here, so they have some capacity to kind of survive. But if you can really get a nice long cold period for an extended time, that sometimes can knock some of them out. The other thing we're seeing is, I think we're going to have a lot of weed mats, and a lot of grubs and some of these things survive on some of these weed mats, and I think we're going to have a lot of that. Something like black cutworm, if it flies in the spring, will be attracted again to those heavy annual weed mats that are kind of coming up. What else? And there might even be some insects that we don't typically see because they would have been killed all the way back insecticide by it being so cold. So up here during lunch, we were talking about grain beetles in bins, and people seeing more of them this year. Your grain bins really got to freeze to kill those things, and if you don't, you're going to get some survivors. So this isn't really a good winter. I think grubs, anything that for the winters is probably going to do better.
What causes non-BT type hybrid to look so much superior over the traded corn in those cases?
So you want to know why in the pictures with the strips, why is the non-BT corn looking so much better than the BT corn? The non-BT corn all has soil insecticide on it in those pictures. So what you're seeing is a conventional hybrid with Aztec in some of those cases. So the guys have done the right thing. They put in treated at a higher, maybe a reduced rate with a soil insecticide. The BT corn only had a seed treatment that dissipated after maybe a couple weeks after the plant came up. It's and if the Cry3BB is not working, or they're resistant to it, it's essentially an unprotected root mass. So what you're seeing is the effect of soil insecticide and no soil insecticide, essentially.
What kind of a model have you guys got this year for soybean?
So the question was, what about soybean aphid? Our fall flights in this area were very, very low again. I think I've gotten rid of them somehow. I'm repelling them. I'm not sure how. I think Western cutworm is repelling them. Very, very low and no eggs. The only place where we had a little bit of fall flight, down in Monroe County, I always get a little bit of fall flight, and that's also our heaviest area of buckthorn, which is the plant that they overwinter on. We've had virtually no soybean aphids. I mean, they're always here, but not outbreak kind of conditions since about 2008. And the isolated areas where we often have them, it's still that low potassium soil. So we've been really lucky. We haven't had to deal with aphids.
That's interesting. Some dairymen tell me that their cattle do not seem to like their silage made from stacked hybrids.
So the question is that some dairymen say that they don't like the silage that is chopped from stacked hybrids. I guess I'm not a livestock person. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, sometimes some of the BTs are greener longer, and when they're chopped, maybe the percent moisture is a little bit different or something, just because they can often stay greener longer and they have thicker stalks. I don't know much about that.
Well, the larger pieces of stalk from the silage, the cattle leave and then bump.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I guess there could be some bigger pieces. I know as we've gone to more of the BTs, we've had more refuse on the field that has caused a problem for planting. That's been another thing with looking at the bigger plants, the taller plants, the thicker plants. There's more gunk there at the beginning of the next season. So that I don't know, can't specifically address that.
The corn with all these stacks, that's substitution of gene. You can't add to a plant, can you?
It's not a substitution. It's adding that gene in. It didn't take something out to put that in.
So corn will stay corn regardless of how many genes are substituted to the same chemical analysis, or.
Well, I guess at some point, if you replaced a large percentage of the genome with a fish or something, no, I don't know. I mean, there would be at some point, if you took two things. I mean, if you take a horse and what goes crosses with a donkey. What? I'm trying to think, when you put two things together, can't you breed a horse and a zebra and some zebra or something? I don't know. Yeah, so it is something. I mean, eventually you do get something different if you have genetic materials different. So yeah, there's something. Someone had a question way in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, how are you putting your insecticide in, with a pop-up fertilizer, or going back to the lock and load, or?
Well, I guess it's whatever is most convenient to you. Some people still have the soil insecticide boxes. I've heard about more people putting the smart boxes on so they can just slap that on there. I don't know how much luck people have had with some of the products that are coming on liquid. Some of the early stuff like Regent didn't work very well. I think Capture has a label. But you know what, on my planter, we haven't used those things, my research planter, those things were like rusting because we haven't used those in so long. But yeah, thinking about going back again to using some of the soil insecticides, we may have to do that in some, I mean, people in Iowa and Minnesota are making those exact decisions right now. Okay, she's making me take one more.
Corn earworm.
Corn earworm. Are we seeing more corn earworm? I didn't in my plots, but there are some states where people work on earworm and they do tend to find more of that. It's more of a southern problem. You know, it's kind of moving up, so it depends on the year whether you get a flight or not. I think people in sweet corn and some of the other corns see it more readily. But this year, there were a few earworm as I did my western cutworm sampling. I did see a few earworm, but I didn't see any fields that had a lot. I didn't hear about any fields that had a lot in fields.
Well, let's thank Chris for her presentation.